oh, when I start making more money, I have to drive a certain kind of car. I have to live in a certain kind of place.
Did you hear that? I have to. And you quickly realize, no, you don't. And who do you have to do that for? People who don't care about you, people who don't like you, and people who sure as hell are not going to pay your bills. Happy Sunday, day before Labor Day, folks. All right, it's hitting about 6 o'clock on Sunday. There's a thunderstorm going on. You might hear some crackling in the background, but we're going to work our way through it. All right, so we're going to look at I think it's about 4 TikTok videos that I pulled. And most of them, I think the first 3 are about a minute, even less than that long. And the last TikTok video we're going to look at is just shy of 3 minutes. But I really felt that what she had to say, people could learn from. Because most of these people are young that are on TikTok, I'm going to take a slightly different role than I normally take on the Dave Ramsey reaction videos that I do. On the Dave Ramsey reaction videos that I do, I take a much more, like to say, authoritative role at my 57 years old. And I won't say I'm less kind, but I'm a little bit more harsh and critical. But here we're looking at TikTokers that are clearly young and clearly experiencing things in life for the first time, things that we as older people have experienced. So I'm going to shift bunny ears or hats or whatever you want to say, and I'm going to look at this more from a big sister advice role. Okay, so I'm not going to take the usual tone that I might take on a Dave Ramsey, listening to some guy who's been married, divorced, has 4 kids, and thinks he doesn't have to do anything to improve his life. These are young people who are just kind of in shock that the world is what it is. So let's hear them out and see if we can learn from them. Thanks so much for joining me. Let's hit it.
There's one video of mine that needs to do well, it's this one. This is the first month I won't be able to afford rent. I'm not a rich person. I don't have a lot of stuff. I have basic household necessities.
Okay, now I'm going to stop this with commentary because sometimes they say too much and I can't remember it all. Okay, she says she has basic household stuff and necessities. Now, I'm looking at the background, all right? This looks pretty nice. My first apartment in my 20s looked nothing like what I'm seeing in the background. As a matter of fact, my first apartment when I was in my 20s, I do believe clearly she's in her 20s, I overlooked a garbage, those big green garbage dumpsters. Yes, when I walked out my door and about 10 steps across the parking lot was the trash dumpster. The light bulb that led into my apartment, the light bulb outside the door, I can't think of the word. It's the light bulb right outside your door. That had 2 bullet holes in it. I guess from previous incidents, all right? It was a really rough neighborhood. I'm looking at the background. Now, again, we're only getting a snapshot. We haven't taken a tour of the place, okay? I don't know how many square feet it is, but looking at this, it looks pretty nice. Again, we're only taking a snapshot. All right, I'm looking at the background going, I would have liked to have had this at her age. I did not have this at her age. Again, I'm not saying that where she's living is unreasonable. I don't know enough about her place. All I can tell you is looking at that, I didn't have anything that looked this nice in the background.
Couch, a bed, washer, a dryer.
Okay, she has the washer and dryer. I did not have a washer and dryer, honestly, until I got married. I did not. Now, again, I do agree that a washer and dryer is definitely not a luxury. But, okay, if you do have one and you're in your 20s, count yourself kind of on the lucky side. All right? There's a reason laundromats exist because lots of us didn't and don't have washer and dryers. So to have the luxury of a washer and dryer, that's actually pretty cool. I'm just comparing it.
That's about it. A
Car's pretty nice. I did not have a car for part of my 20s. I rode the bus, right? No secret, when I did finally have a car, a decent one in my 30s, it got repossessed. But I'm really focusing on my 20s, the age bracket that I do believe she's in, okay? I didn't have washer and dryer. I didn't have car. I was on the bus.
I don't have a lot of lavish things. I don't go on vacations, and I don't spend a lot. Rent's increased from $1,300 to $1,800.
Wow, her rent's gone from $13 to $18. So that's a $500 jump. And what is sad is that $500 jump isn't even as bad as it can get. It can get a whole lot worse. I have to be honest, folks, I really don't know how people are living alone, okay, and able to make ends meet without a roommate. And when I talk about bare bones, all right, like in Tampa, you really do need a car. You really, really do. You're going to be waiting hours and hours for the bus. I mean, look at it, storming outside right now. So I'm not even going to put a car down as a luxury. I'm not going to. I don't consider washer, dryer, and car as luxuries. They are necessities for comfortable living, but they are luxuries in the sense of lots of people don't have them. I actually did not have a washer and dryer in my place, I believe, until I was in my 30s. Then I finally got a washer and dryer in my place. So I know we like to think of a car. It is a necessity to a certain point, but there is public transportation. I know people don't like it. I know it's not convenient, okay? And you may be spending as many hours waiting for a bus as you would spend commuting, sitting in traffic in Los Angeles or wherever. But still, when we look at those, they are to some extent a luxury. Just to some extent.
The food prices are too high. I've cut back on eating because I literally cannot afford food.
I think there's something that a lot of people in their 20s don't realize. The cutting back on the eating, folks, for me to get myself out of debt in my 50s, guess what? I had to cut back on my eating. We cut back on our eating because really it's the easiest thing to control. We can't control, for the most part, things like, electricity. Even if I go around, I turn off all the lights and I take really short showers. I do everything I can. There's still a certain base electricity rate that is out of my control. I turn up the air conditioning, make sure it's off when I'm gone. I do these little things. But food is really the one thing in our budget that we can say, you know what, I spent $600 this month on food, and next month I'm going to knock it down to $400. It's the one area that we really, I believe, feel like to some extent that we do have control over. Unfortunately, and we know this from the stories and stuff, okay, you get people, they can't afford any food at all. So there even comes a point where that's out of your control.
I've cut back on my favorite snacks, cat food, treat.
Okay, snacks, cat food, and treat. Snacks. Definitely don't need those. That's a pure luxury. Cat food. Now, for those of you animal lovers, I just want you to know I was raised with 3 cats. Boo Poo, Ying Su, Missy Lou. My mother named them, okay? Boo Poo, Ying Su, Missy Lou. All right? I think there's another, and Bitsy Bug, okay? My mother was a big fan of Siamese cats. That's all we ever had were Siamese cats, all right? Those are luxuries. Pets are luxuries. I know people go, but they're emotional therapy. I get it. But short of a doctor saying that your survival depends on you having a pet for a medical reason, folks, pets are luxuries. When I was in my early 20s, a friend gave me a pet as a gift. Never ever give anyone a pet as a gift, ever. Because I had to give up the pet. Luckily got adopted by a doctor. But guys, pets when you are young, even when you get older, but let's talk about the age she's at. Guys, pets are a luxury. Okay, the vet bills, the maintenance bills, people go, oh, but it's just cat food. No, it's not. It's not just cat food. All right. Bottom line is, we like to say that we're living as, meager as we can. I don't think a lot of young people really have an idea as to just how meager things can get. Meager is you don't have a pet. Meager is you don't have a pet, you take the city bus. You have breakfast for breakfast and dinner because it's cheaper. You try to make your best meal of the day, if possible, lunch to get you through work or, fitting whatever your hours are. We like to think that we look at a budget and we go, oh, it's down as far as we can. I can guarantee you probably 75% of the time we can take it down some more. The most I've ever paid for a cell phone was $200, and I think that was last year. I've never paid more than $200 for a cell phone. I'm an Android lover. The most I've ever paid for monthly cell phone service, the most ever, is $45 a month, and that's what I pay now. It might be up to $50, so figure $45, $50. That's the most I've ever paid. When people say that I've cut down my budget, you gotta look at where these little luxuries are. The luxury is the iPhone instead of an Android. The luxury is to choose to have a pet instead of not having a pet. The luxury is to have a car versus taking the city bus. I'm not saying these are things you want to do, but what I am saying is they may be things you have to do.
I'm exhausted all the time from being overworked and underpaid. You don't...
Overworked and underpaid. I think overworked and underpaid has been a lifelong humanitarian issue, and I'll tell you why. Why do you think unions formed? Because back in the early 1900s, people were overworked and underpaid. Okay? So, well, I have to give due credit to Gen Z and millennials having valid complaints, and they are valid. Okay? They have very valid complaints about, overworked and underpaid. I think the one thing that gets forgotten in all of this, all right, because I don't think the Gen Xers, people my age, I don't think we're not as vocal on social media. But really because we just weren't raised with it. And a lot of times we're just entertained watching the younger generation on it. We just sit and watch, we love you guys, okay? We love the millennials, we love the Gen Zs, okay? But really the Gen Xers, we just pretty much sit around and watch you guys do your thing, all right? But I think a lot of young people feel like they're the only generation that is overworked and underpaid. No, it's been going on for decades and decades and decades. Okay? Child labor going on. Still goes on in parts of the world, but let's focus here in the United States. Okay? Kids overworked, underpaid. Adults overworked, underpaid. I think just even before civil rights, without going off on that, okay? People overworked and underpaid. It's not just a Gen Z thing. It's not just a millennial thing or an upcoming alpha generation thing. Alpha is the generation that follows Gen Z. Alpha is still in school. They're still young, all right? Not discounting the overworked, underpaid tiers we see here in this video, and we've seen in many TikTok videos, all right? But I just need young people to remember, well, it's new to them, overworked and underpaid. Really, on a humanitarian level, it's not new. Overworked and underpaid has been around for a long time.
Catch a break when you grow up poor. I don't need much to be happy. I just want to be able to live comfortable.
I genuinely feel for her. I genuinely do. She said it's not hard. What she goes, she grew up poor. It's not easy. From what I understand, okay, and I'm not going to give out statistics and all this, but I'm just going to give you general information for what I understand. It is much harder to jump socioeconomic classes than people think. We look at people like Oprah Winfrey, great, okay? She is one out of how many billion with a B people in the world that was literally, wasn't she like Mississippi, practically, poor black community, poverty, and abused at the same time? I don't recall if that's correctly her state, but I do believe she was from the Deep South and propelled herself. That is one out of a billion, okay, or so people, all right? How many can we name? It's not as easy just to tell someone like her, this young lady here, and she's beautiful, and she looks like, she may have been raised poor, but somewhere or another, she has grace and elegance, and you can see that in the video, okay? Like I said, family, I'm taking on a softer and gentler tone, okay? Kind of like looking like if these were my kids, all right? It's not as easy to pull yourself from one socioeconomic class to the other. It's not. Especially if you have not been left anything from your parents. And even if you weren't left anything financially from your parents, how did your parents guide you? What did they do in modeling for you that would help you get to the next socioeconomic class. That's everything from how did they dress in public, how'd they talk, how'd they walk, how did they communicate with their friends. And you may think, well, that's not very important. Yeah, it is. And in some ways, I'll tell you, I think it's even more important than money. I do. I think the social mannerisms, the social graces, to me, is more important than leaving you money. And I think I can kind of prove that due to the fact that you have people who don't have the social mannerisms, the social graces. They have money, and what happens with that money? They lose it all. They lose it all. Because somewhere or another, they weren't taught how to think like upper class people think financially, how upper class people act, behave. So she's poor. She wants to get to the next class. She's probably done everything they've told her to do. But I'm willing to bet if we were to look more closely at her, like one-on-one, where did your money go? I'm willing to bet we could find holes in it. I feel really bad for her because we've seen videos like this on TikTok where people go, I was raised in poverty. And again, we don't know how poor she really was. Okay. So, from today's standard, I wasn't raised wealthy, but I definitely was not raised poor. I was just raised by 2 school teachers. Small house. It's probably around 1,500 square feet. 4 kids, 3 cats. Typical, right?
They just really need to catch a break right now. I'm trying so hard and I feel like I'm not doing enough. I don't have family. I don't have anything to fall back on. I just need one video to blow up and it could be life-changing for me.
Hey, I'm helping her out. I got her video on this channel. All right, let's look at this next one. Okay, this lady looks, she's a little bit older. She looks, I'm going to say she's probably in her 30s. So I have to realize that not everybody watches the videos. They do it, listening in their car or something. So I try to give a little detail as to the video. The screen says, I'm so tired of living my life in survival mode. All right, let's go ahead and hit it.
I am so tired of living my life in survival mode because despite having 2 college degrees and making close to $80,000 a year, I still cannot keep up with the cost of living. I still cannot afford all of my bills every month and have to live paycheck to paycheck.
This seems to be the ongoing drumbeat. And, it's interesting because I've been there. So she makes about 80. I grossed 70 last year. Now, I think I hear kids in the background. At least I thought I did. So if I heard correctly, it sounds like she might have a child or 2. She has 2 master's degrees. My question would also be, what's the student loan debt on that?
I think that's absolutely ridiculous. I am sacrificing my mental health, my time, and my energy to take care of people in their most vulnerable moments, and a lot of the time they do not make it. At the very least, I should be able to pay my bills.
Okay, she sounds like she might be a hospice type of worker or home caregiver, something along those lines. She never really clearly said it. I think it's horrible that in this country, at least the way it is now, you can work a full-time job, make 80 grand a year. So she's making well in the $40 an hour range. Okay. Possibly even a little bit more than that. I'm going to say high 40s, right around there. I'm just sort of estimating it based on my pay. Okay. She's clearly in the $40 an hour range plus. All right. And can't make ends meet. But again, are people living more upscale than they should? It's a tough question, believe me, to have to ask. I live in 840 square feet. I gross 10,000 less than she did in 2023. So she says she made 80,000. I gross 70,000. That includes my little 8-hour, not even quite 8 hours, about a 6-hour week part-time job, 6 to 8 hours, right around there. Okay, I live in 840 square feet. So I wonder what her cost of housing is. Housing, cars, 2 of the biggest things, and we know this, it's not new, 2 of the biggest things that will financially break you. And of course, student loan debt.
And for anyone who's thinking, oh, well, you shouldn't have chose that job, somebody has to do it.
And God bless her for saying that. It sounds like she works in some sort of health, hospice type care. She works in something like that. You hear that as a teacher too. Well, if you don't like the teacher pay, you shouldn't have done it. Okay, so you would rather have someone be a teacher that just wants to stay there for a few years and then leave? You want someone that is going to be a teacher just simply because they're not quite sure what they want to do with themselves, and then when they figure it out, they're going to leave? It's very easy to sit and say, well, if you don't like it, then, just leave the job. But for every job, you want someone to leave. What happens when you need that service? What happens when you need the teacher? You don't like working at Starbucks? Well, just get another job. Well, that's fine, but if you've ever visited Starbucks, who would you like to have serving you? It's to some extent a cop-out to say, well, if you just don't like that job, leave. Especially when these are jobs, and it sounds like she's in one, just like teachers, firefighters, military, police, okay, and a lot of other public service people, yes, including the DMV, all right, DMV employees. These are jobs that require an immense amount of talent to work with the public. It requires an immense amount of patience, self-control. I mean, come on, folks. No, really, it sounds like she may be dealing with people who are dying. All right? So it's not so easy.
And you know damn well, if your loved one was critically ill, you would want somebody to take care of them, right?
Okay, so yeah, she's definitely in critical illness care. And here's the sad part. If they're taking care of my loved one, it's just darn wrong, and I'm using the nice word, it's darn wrong that they can't go home and take care of their own loved ones because they're not paid enough. It's like teachers who, teach other people's kids. All right, they go to other, as teachers, you go to your students' games and whatnot, but you can't afford to go to your own kid's game because you need that extra overtime money, or you need that extra little pay that you get for picking up an extracurricular activity.
Something has to give. I cannot keep doing this.
All right, I put my own music on the background because of TikTok copyright issues, and I'm going to read to you what it says on the screen because this lady doesn't talk. For those who cannot see the screen, she's basically having a tearful breakdown. And again, I think I'm doing a pretty good job. We're taking a softer, kinder, gentler tone on this. This is not quite the tone I take on Ramsey, all right? Not towards Dave Ramsey, but we're talking about the calls on Ramsey. All right, so let me put on lift my bifocals up. All right, let's see what it says here. On the screen, this young lady says, and she appears to be very young also, all right, again, 20-something, I'm positive of it. The fact that on the screen it says, the fact that I couldn't afford to pay my rent, so now I owe $4,030 days, and I'm currently staying on someone's couch without any support from anyone but myself, all at the age of 20. I don't deserve this. Why me? God knows I've had the worst year of my life. It's interesting. I was having lunch with a friend of mine today, a casual friend, and she was telling me about how her workplace is like family. She goes, my workplace, she goes, we're like family. If we've taught you nothing, if you learned nothing from watching social media, stop thinking of your workplace like family. Your coworkers, you have friends there, yada yada. Okay? But I tested her on that family challenge, and I said to her, if you were to get laid off from your job unexpectedly, and you were facing eviction because you got laid off from your job and you could no longer pay your rent, like this young lady here in the TikTok video, I said, would your coworkers take you in? Would anyone offer you their couch? Her dead silence told me I had just hit the nail on the head. Do not mistaken, young people, and think that everybody that you work with is family. I am not saying we don't respect each other. I'm not saying you don't admire each other. There are teachers at work I wish I could be as good as. Okay? I go, man, I'd really like to. I mean, I'm good in my own right. But Man, if I could be this teacher, I could be even better. Okay, so you could have respect, admiration, professional courtesies, and growth, yada yada, with your peers. But young people, a lot of you are very shocked when the corporation that you worked for a year and a half says, we don't need you anymore, goodbye. And you walk away going, but I thought they were family. Everybody on the team liked each other. There's a difference between your family at home that gives you a bed, a couch, all right, and the professional, quote, family that you work with. Now, don't get me wrong. There are a handful of people at work, if I knew they were on their couch, okay, that are absolutely dear friends of mine, both inside and outside of work, with relationships that have been built over years. Okay? They are like family. And yes, they would have a place on my couch. But we're talking these relationships extend well outside of work. They extend into the realm of, personally caring for each other. I think a lot of young people think that just because, in and of itself, because you work with someone, that makes them family. No, it does not. Family is a relationship that takes years to develop, cultivate. And it's that relationship that kind of, who could you call at 2 o'clock in the morning if you knew your butt was in trouble and you needed someone to come get you up? Who could you call? Now you're getting closer to family. She's literally having a meltdown, and we are being sensitive towards it. Let me tell you something, and I wanted to, show respect towards her video, so I wanted to play her video all the way through. Like I said, I had to change it to my music, and I think my choice of music is much better, and it keeps me from dealing with copyright issues. Being out of control with money, and you've heard it just earlier with the other people have said it on this video, it's exhausting. It is emotionally draining. It sits in the back of your mind over everything you do. It's like student loan debt. It weighs on you. It is so emotionally draining. It controls your mood. It controls, what you can do, how often you can do it, if you can even do it. It's why if I had to do it over again, damn, I could have lived on so much less than what I did. Now in my case, I'm not saying that my apartment was too fancy. It was. I lived in a garage, a converted garage at one point. And then, like I said, I had a little apartment. I think it was probably around maybe 550 square feet, maybe around there. Okay. So where I've lived, the neighborhoods I've lived in, I can honestly say, no, they've not been above what was appropriate for me. But taking that aside, could I have bought less? Oh, absolutely. But when you're young and the world is opening up to you for the first time, you think you have to have it all, and you have to have it all right now, and you want it all right now. And you realize it can wait.
Yesterday, my tenant called me to let me know that he's going to be applying and probably taking a job back home.
All right, now this one, I'm going to change just an ever so hat because this woman doesn't need the sensitivity that the other ones did. This is what I call first world debt problems. First world debt problems are problems that only people in first world countries who clearly had more money than most of us had, but kind of blew it in the way they chose to spend it. Now, I'm not saying that, she didn't do it good. I'm not saying she didn't do her due diligence, okay, before she decided to do this rental thing, but you'll see. First world debt problems. Let's hear her out.
And the level of sheer just, what am I gonna do? So I bought a townhouse in South Pasadena, but
California. South Pasadena, California, one of the most expensive states at this point to live in. She bought a townhouse. She ain't on the poor side of life, at least from what we can tell.
Like South Pasadena. Early 2021, when I had a job in LA, I was the VP of marketing. Then I went on to be head of growth. So like I was making enough money to offset it. My mortgage plus HOA is $3,000 a month.
Okay. Like I said, I'm putting more of a Ramsey hat on this particular call. The big sister hat's kind of coming off. Look, here's the bottom line. She was rolling in the money. Okay? She was rolling in the money. And it was one of those situations I bet she felt like this was going to last for forever. Because this is 2021, so we're in pandemic time. See, guys, I always knew. Now, and I'm going to credit it's probably because of age, okay? Just age and experience. But dang, I always knew that good time money wasn't going to last forever. The stimulus package wasn't going to come in forever. It wasn't going to be for forever that student loans would be delayed. Yeah, I got my $110,000 forgiven in 2022, but even so, I still planned for it. I still budgeted for it. I still lived as if it were coming back because I knew eventually it would. I was fortunate that it did not. But I made sure that when I bought this 840 square foot condo that, it wasn't going to interfere with a student loan. This lady runs out, gets a few titles under her name, and then goes, hey, you know what? I'm going to go buy a townhouse that's $3,000 a month. What is that? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 3, 30, not like 36 a year, something like that, right around there. $3,000 a month, right? 36,000 a year. Am I about right? Yeah, over 30,000 a year.
And I texted my real estate agent. She was like, do you want to move back in?
Saying, do you want to move back into the townhouse? That's what I think she's saying. The one that the tenant's now moving out of.
Baby, I can't afford to live in my own house. No. Let's go ahead and find another renter.
So she bought a piece of property. Now, clearly this lady is old enough to know better, okay? So this lady bought a piece of property that she could not afford unless there was a renter in it. Yeah. And when the renter moved out, all the heck went to hell in a handbasket. So instead of taking her money and going, you know what? How about if I buy a piece of property that I can afford to live in? Because you could bet at one point she was rolling in the money. Like I said, the titles were all there. She was living in Los Angeles. It was looking good. People, and I've said it on this channel before and I will say it again, family, when you are at the best financial time in your life, it is my belief that is when you need to buckle down. You need, it's like imagining you're a submarine. You need to buckle down the hatchet. All right? You don't go out and spend more and more and more. Because those good times don't last for forever. They may come and go. But when they go is when you need to be most prepared. Okay? When my late mother left me some money, my late mom and stepfather left me some money, not enough to make me rich, clearly, okay? But enough to help me get a leg up into debt freedom, okay? And I honor them for that by living below my means, yada, yada. But this lady that had a tenant in Pasadena, she went in, she bought all this because she thought the good times were going to last. The tenant was going to be there for forever. And look how the economy has tanked, how jobs have tanked, how growth of income has tanked. All right? Since 21 just to now. That's why I say her video clip is first world debt problems. First world TikTok debt problems. I don't feel sorry for her. And it's not because, I didn't have it and she got to have the chance. I really don't. Okay? You make it to VP of marketing growth, yada, yada. All right? You have enough experience underneath your belt, in my opinion, to understand your own growth. But then again, we know oftentimes that, just because someone's the accountant for a job that might deal with millions, even billions of dollars, doesn't mean they know how to go home and budget their own $90,000 a year income.
I told myself I would never cry on the internet because I think that's so lame. But I just got our rent renewal thing for our apartment complex, and it's going up by $300 a month.
And you know what's sad? She should consider herself lucky it's only going up by 300. There are people facing 5 and 6. Let's put this 300 in perspective. All right, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 3,000. That's $3,600 a year increase. $3,600. If I were to take $3,600 of my bills, what could I pay with it? But $3,600 would cover my electric bill for the year, my cell phone bill for the year, and my water bill for the year. That's a lot of money. And I'm one of those people that I don't look at things on a month to month. To get out of debt, I like to look at what something is going to cost me over a year span. Because let's face it, folks, when you look at things month to month, that's when you get into the biggest debt problem. That's when you start thinking, oh, payday loans are good because you're looking at it month to month. That's when buy now, pay later looks good. That's when rent to own furniture looks good because you're only looking at it from month to month. You're not looking at it, excuse me, you're not looking at it from a year-long standpoint. Just make sure my microphone was on. That would be sad to find out, what is it, nearly 30 minutes later, the microphone's off, all right? So when I look at a bill, I want to see what's going to cost me for the entire year. Until I got a condo, my increase was about $500 a year. That's how much my rental increase was. Hold on. Excuse me, I had to sneeze. I didn't want to sneeze into the microphone. That's how my increase was about $50 a month. And that, by the way, was before I got the condo in 2020. So you're talking 2018, 2019. My increases were about $50 a month. This is how out of control the rent increases are. It's greed, folks. Greed, greed, greed. You can't convince me it's all property taxes and insurance.
$300 for a 1-bedroom apartment that is not updated in any sort of way. And our complex doesn't even have nice amenities. We have a tiny pool and a tennis court. This is not a luxury apartment complex. We already pay, with all the fees and everything included, $2,000 a month, and now we're going to be paying $2,300 a month for this tiny apartment. And that's just so frustrating. I don't understand how people can live in this world anymore, and I just don't want to move again because that's so much work. And
moving is so expensive. It was expensive before all this, and now they want you to have first months, last months. If you have a pet, you got to pay for that. And so a lot of places, as you know, it's not just a one-time pet deposit, it's a monthly fee to have your pet as well. This is why people sometimes, I'm not saying I'm not an animal lover, okay? But sometimes you have to look at pets. They are a cost, all right? And I'm looking at her background. I mean, if this place, I'm assuming, not assuming, it's going to have a bedroom, a bathroom. I think it's a 1-2 place. I don't see $2,300 in background. I don't. Matter of fact, that first video that we looked at with the real nice drywall and the trim and all of that stuff, notice this place doesn't have trim. My place does have trim, but that's because I put it in. All right, that was one of my dream features of a place was I wanted 6-inch baseboards, ceiling and floor. I wanted crown molding 6-inch. I wanted baseboard 6-inch. I'd love that look of big, fat baseboards. Okay, so I have it throughout my whole place. But I'm looking at her place and, it looks really basic, looking at the cupboards and stuff. If they're being charged $2,300 and that just includes another maybe 1 or 2 bedrooms and a bathroom, looking at the background, this it's silly. And that's the thing, these rent increases are occurring and yet nothing's being done to the property.
More money, and it's stressful trying to find another place, and it's just so annoying. And now I feel like I need to get a new job, and I just got this job and I like it, but it's not paying me nearly what I need. And so now I'm gonna have to go through applying to jobs again, which I did for a whole year plus until
something else to consider too. All right, when you have pets, it can limit where you live. So if this is why things like pet ownership, I believe, that's just my personal opinion, I think people should wait on pet ownership. Because well, you are establishing yourself, and you need to be able to go anywhere. All right. When you add in the cost of a pet, that can limit you. And then when you start talking big dogs, well, that's a whole different. That's another whole different issue. Okay, the bigger the dog and where you go. So these are just things you have to consider. I'm not saying you can't have a kitty cat and whatnot. I'm just saying there are things that you need to consider.
I found this job, so I'm gonna have to go through all of that again. It's just not fair.
I moved into a place.
All right, this is the last one, and this is about 3 minutes, and I really have to commend this young lady, also in her 20s, very early 20s, for her ability to see where her mistakes are. So that's why I want to play this. This is stuff that we older people would already know. But to see someone who's young be able to go, you know what? I see the problem. I think this lady is going to be fine if she takes what she's learned and applies it. I think she will have a very bright financial future if she can learn the emotional control of money. And this is what she's figuring out. These are the things I wish I had known.
That I can't afford, and now I'm stuck. I recently moved into a luxury apartment, and though it is nice and I like it and all these other things, I realized that I can't afford it.
Snaps to her. Just because you can buy it on paper, just because you actually could, not saying she can, just because you actually could pull it off doesn't mean you should. I did not have to live in 840 square feet. I could have even purchased a house. At the time that I got this place, yeah. And I had a $110,000 student loan. But I wasn't looking ever for a house. So I would have just purchased a higher grade condo. That's all I would have done. I didn't have to purchase a $100,000 condo. I could have looked at 150 without dropping an eye. I could have gone up to 200,000 and avoided PMI. Okay, that's the condo insurance. So I could have gotten double the luxury. And I could have afforded it, and I could have paid it off in less than 15 years. It took me, and I do admit, okay, my parents did leave me some money to help me do that. So, and if you've watched my channel, I admit that. All right. So my mortgage was about $45,000, and I paid it off in about 2.5 years. But considering the access that I had, the things that I could have done, I could have gotten much nicer. But just because I knew I could, my financial history told me don't. So I chose not to. This young lady in this video is able to admit she got into a luxury apartment. This is where a lot of young people got to stop. You got to get off of TikTok and stop looking at all these people are living this fancy high life, putting on the show. And you think that's what you're supposed to have. I'm 57. This is where I live. I've never lived in a luxury apartment.
And when I say I can't afford it, it does not mean I can't pay for it. Like, I have enough money to pay for it as far as money's in my bank account. But as far as like what I want to do in life, I can't really afford it.
And what happened was she got the place before she did the budget. I will oftentimes say, I can't afford something, and I can pay all my bills now on one check. I got a new car 4 months ago. It'll be 8 payments total. I have 4 payments left on my new car. That's my brand new Toyota Corolla hybrid. Total of 8 payments. I bought it with 6 miles on it. I could have gone way up. As a matter of fact, if I really wanted to, I could go out and I could land myself a Mercedes-Benz tomorrow. And I know for a fact I could. My credit score sits in the 800, no kids, no student loans, no credit cards. I gross 70,000. I can live off of one paycheck. Yeah, I could put my butt in a Mercedes. It could be a $1,200 a month payment. Yeah, I could pull that off too. Remember, I can live off of one paycheck. What you learn though is you choose not to afford it. The ability to choose not to afford something, in my opinion, is more powerful than the inability to buy it because you don't have the money. Let me repeat that. It is my opinion that the ability to choose, to selectively say, I'm not going to buy that. I could buy it, but I'm not going to buy it. That to me is more powerful than saying I can't buy it simply because I don't have the money. Why do I think that's more powerful? Because it means when I tell you that I'm choosing not to buy it, it means I have emotional control over my money. It means I understand the consequences of my spending. It means I understand the different choices, the different options that I have, and I am choosing to make the option that protects me and or my loved ones. All right? And that to me is powerful. But I didn't experience that until I was near debt freedom. But as I started getting closer and closer to debt freedom, I started to go, you know what? I'm going from I can't afford this, to I choose not to afford it. She cannot afford this place. She can't. She's in her early 20s, on TikTok saying she got a luxury apartment. She didn't think in advance on an annual basis. Remember, I just told you, I look at things on an annual basis. What is this costing her? What is she going to have to give up to be able to be here? Again, just because you have the dollars on paper to get it doesn't mean you should, when placed against the backdrop of other things that you need to spend money on or you might want to spend money on.
In a sense of, now I'm in a position where it's like I'm here and I pay so much in rent, it's to the point where it's like I can't even go on a trip right now. Like I can't, and I haven't traveled in a while, and I'm very big on traveling. Like I'm very, very big on going out and stuff like that.
Well, of course she's big on going out. She's young. But what happened is she got into the apartment because it's a luxury place. Okay, she might be making what is a decent income, but part of maturity, and I think it's great that she is becoming aware of this, okay? But part of maturity is going, am I willing to give up my travel, in her case, okay? Am I willing to give up my travel so I can have this luxury apartment? Now, make no mistake, there are people who would be willing to do that, all right? There'd be willing to go, look, you know what? I would rather put my money into where I live. I'll be honest, I'm more of a homebody than I am a traveler. I will travel, but traveling is so freaking expensive that, for me, it's like, geez, if I have $500, all right, and I know you can't travel for $500, but just, play along with me here for a second, okay? If I have $500 for an airplane trip somewhere, for a vacation that I'm going to spend more money on beyond the $500 for, 4 days, for a 4-day vacation, or would I rather take that $500 and, fix up my home? I'm the type, I'll take it, I'll fix up my home. Because it's not, $500, right? If she really, really values travel, and there are young people and older people who do, it's not an age restrictive thing, of course, all right? Then that needs to be factored into, I like to travel, so I need to downgrade my standard of living.
And I can't really do it as much as I would like to because it's like I can't afford it.
Yes, because you are house poor. Now again, she may not actually be house poor. She says she can afford the dollars, but you can afford the dollars so long as you give up the travel. If you really, really had wanted the travel, let's just say, throw out a number, because she likes to spend $5,000 a year on travel, then not only does she need to take down the apartment by $5,000, she needs to also factor in the fact that apartments go up in rent every single year. Every year, just darn near. All right, I never lived in a place that didn't have a rent increase. So if she really wanted to keep up the travel, she needed to downgrade this and possibly take on another job as well.
And I don't know why we do this to ourselves. Like, I don't know why when we feel like we get a new job or we start making more money and stuff like that, it's like, oh, I have to increase my living expenses because that's...
We do it, honey, because we are inexperienced at being able to control the emotional aspect of money. Okay, we've not yet fully developed that control. And the sad part is, and we can hear it in the Dave Ramsey commentary shows that I do. Oh, I live stream on that Thursdays, usually around 6:15 in the evening or so, live stream Ramsey. I mean, I don't live stream his show when it's live, but I do my commentary live stream. But we do it, honey, because there are plenty of us at all age levels, including 60, 70. We have not yet learned how to control our emotions towards money. And until we can learn to control our emotional response to money, all right, we can't ever really experience that freedom. She's very young. You know, think about young people. Folks, think about when you were young, if you're my age in our 50s, okay? And you would have to ask your parents for everything. Can I go to Dairy Queen? Well, when Dairy Queen was around. Okay, can I get an ice cream cone? Can I go see a movie? And imagine all of a sudden now, and we've all been there, you don't have to ask anybody. You want to go see a movie? Go see a movie. You want to buy that dress? Go buy that dress. And for a while, it seems like the whole entire world just seems like one big, Visa, MasterCard, credit card smorgasbord. Then we start to wake up and we start to realize there are consequences. The goal is to wake up quickly to realize it soon.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, okay, well, now I'm making more money, so it just makes sense for me to get a nicer place. It just makes sense for me to get a luxury apartment.
Look how old she is. Look how old she is. She got to be under 24 years old. And she's already talking luxury apartment. I was talking nowhere near luxury apartment in my 20s. But where are these ideas coming from? Where is it coming from that 20-year-olds, the 20-somethings, not 20-year-old like 19, 20, 21, but where are they getting these ideas that they have to have a luxury apartment, a nice car? A lot of it is social media. A lot of it is also look at the age of their parents. Who are their parents? We have to remember, their parents were raised with Amazon also. Amazon is just more perfected for this generation. Okay? Where are they getting the idea that this doesn't take years and years to get, decades to get? So here she is, and she's doing her makeup and stuff at the sink. And I guess that's a popular thing on TikTok. All right, take your makeup on, off your eyelashes, whatnot. Okay, while you're streaming, it's like whatever. But here she is, and she's already talking the words luxury apartment. Yet she's quickly realizing it's not so luxury when you give up everything. Think about what I could live in. Oh my God, I could have a $2,000 a month mortgage. All right. Instead, because I bought so little based on what I had, my mortgage was something like $500. Okay. I could have a $2,000 a month mortgage. All right. But I choose not to have it because I know it would be very difficult.
Because I'm making this amount of money, and people who make this amount of money live in this kind of place.
And we know this from the Dave Ramsey shows. How many calls have we heard? I make $200,000 a year, wife, 3 kids, and I'm flat broke. But we live in a really nice neighborhood. We drive a really nice car, and we can't figure out what went wrong. It's because we associate that based on your income, you should live a certain lifestyle. We need to get out of thinking that way, folks. Technically, as just a party of one here, on 60, I'm making the low 60s, 1,000 per year. If you really want to get technical, am I not equal to somebody who makes $100,000 a year and has a couple kids? Let's say a household grosses $100,000 a year, has a few kids, just a couple, nothing unreasonable, 2 kids. Could we not be considered on par to the same lifestyle? I'm a party of one, just me. We have it in our heads, in my opinion, wrong. We think instead about, hey, you make 100,000, which, as we know, I understand it's quickly being frittered away by inflation, but stay with me here, okay? You make 100,000, you should look like you make 100,000. I told you, I had a student a few years back ask me if I was poor. Literally, Miss Horn, you poor? Why? Because I saw you coming out of the laundromat? Yet I knew, the student didn't know, but I knew I was on my way to debt freedom and nothing was stopping me. So I did my laundry at the laundromat and continued living underneath my means. Now you'd look at me and you'd probably think I'm poor because I drive a Toyota Corolla, live in 840 square feet. I don't own a dog because I don't want the dog to be put into daycare. Not that I mean, doggy daycare is great, but I don't want to have to afford it. If I had a pet, I would put them in daycare. So I would have to ask, doggy daycare, which I think that's so cute for pets. They should not sit home alone all day long, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. But I understand the responsibility if I were to own a pet, that these are the things I would want to do for that pet. And again, it's not that I can't do it. I'm choosing not to do it while I build up my retirement and stuff. But she fell into the trap, just like many others, millions of others, okay? She makes good money. And some of these young people, folks, are making more than their parents did. Okay? But unfortunately, it's all being eaten up by inflation and stuff, of course. All right? Technically, I make more per year than my parents did. My parents are shocked when they find out what the rent is. And my parents are in their 70s and 80s. And they're just blown away. Because their entire 2-acre, no, I think it's like a 4-acre farm. I think they live on 3-4 acre farm. Okay? I mean, they bought that when I was 8 years old. They're blown away at what the cost of rent is today.
Like I said before, I like where I live. It's really nice.
Well, of course it's nice. It's luxurious. We all want to live in luxury. I'd like to live in a place even nicer than I live. I live very simply. And the other thing, too, living very simply in a condo, it's 3 stories. These luxury condo stories that you hear about, okay, they're coming typically from the beach or surrounded by natural bodies of water, not a pond like I have, a man-made pond with a spigot you can turn on and off, literally, okay, and you can just let it dry up because there's no natural body of water flowing in. They're in flood zones, high wind zones, okay. Those are the horror stories. Those are luxury. I'm in 3 stories off of Del Mabry down the street from Publix. Woohoo! Okay. And even though 3 stories still falls within the new condo laws, our maintenance is nowhere near what it would be if I had paid for a, luxury condo on the beach or near a natural body of water.
It's, really cool and everything, but it's like, at what expense? And I feel like a lot of people don't understand the difference between, yes, you can afford it as far as like money in your account, but you can't really afford it for real.
Like I said, I have hope for this young lady. If she will take her advice to the bank, if she will never forget it, if she is willing to downgrade her lifestyle, but she's still young enough. It's a 50-50. And here's another thing she's going to have to consider. When she marries, if she should choose to marry, will her partner have the same views? Because if she's getting this huge awakening at this age, but she goes into a relationship with someone who does not hold the same views, and how many stories have we heard on the Debt Ramsey call? We've heard a few, folks. I know more than one. I came into the relationship debt-free, I understood money, and then I married somebody, and now we're flat broke.
Like, I'm in a position I honestly and truly can say, like, if something drastic would happen, knock on wood, I pray not, I don't know if I'll be able to afford it. In a sense of, I do have money saved up, but for example, my best friend, right? She totaled her car recently, and so she literally has to buy a new car this weekend. She just totaled her car like 2-3 days ago. She has to buy a new car this weekend. I honestly and truly could say, if I had to buy a new car right now, I would be screwed. Because it's like, dang, like, do I really have enough money to? Because so much of my money has going to me upgrading my lifestyle.
Exactly. If you can't afford the basics, shelter, transportation, insurance, food, and we're talking the basics of food. We're not talking organic and whole foods. Okay, the basics. This is too much housing for her. And we hear this over and over. It's too much housing. This is too nice. When I got my Maxima, before I had it repoed in my early 30s. I only owned that Max, folks, for like a year. That's how little it takes to get your debt completely out of control. It only takes months. I know that sometimes foreclosures and stuff take a few years because you're dealing with banks and all of that. But on a lot of things like cars, apartments, you're going to know pretty darn quickly, all right, whether or not you overdid it. And usually if you overdid it, it's because you didn't budget. She's quickly figuring out the math was not done before she got this place. But I know when I got my Maxima, I remember my parents just looking at it like, literally, they didn't say it out loud, but you could tell. How the bejesus did this kid afford a luxury Nissan Maxima at 31 years old? And she works in insurance. Okay, and at the time, I think I was making like $30,000 a year. I thought I was all that, all right? I know that's what they were thinking. I mean, my car was nicer than their two cars put together. And, of course, being the kind and loving parents, they did not say anything when it was repoed.
And I just feel like, I don't know, I just feel like we have this mindset in a sense of like, oh, when I start making more money, I have to drive a certain kind of car. I have to live in a certain kind of place.
Did you hear that? I have to. And you quickly realize, no, you don't. And who do you have to do that for? People who don't care about you, people who don't like you, and people who sure as hell are not going to pay your bills.
Have to be a certain kind of person. And it's like the place I was living before, it was nothing wrong with it. It was nice. It was cool. I mean, it wasn't as quote unquote nice as the place I'm living now, but at the same time, it's like, what is it worth? At least before, when I wanted to, I can go on trips and I can do different things. And it's just like the same problems that I was having before, I have again, because I feel like every time I want to, like, I level up my lifestyle, I feel like I have to level up all the problems with it. And it's like,
yeah, and you know what all those problems are when you level your lifestyle? It's all the bills that come with it. You level it. Remember what I told you earlier? And I live by this. When I came into some money, all right, not enough to make me rich and retire and all of that, but if played wisely, if I played my hand strategically, I could get myself out of debt and start putting crap loads into retirement. $25,000 a year starting in January. I've actually already started the retirement. It's got about $5,000 in there, but then I halted it to pay off my car in 8 months. So I devoted $20,000 basically. I will devote $20,000 to the car this year. So that makes the $25,000. But when you get into that situation where you're able to have some extra money, don't level up. Buckle down the hatches. Figure out what you can pay off, what you can downgrade. She would be in a totally different position had she never moved, taken all of those bills, got herself completely out of debt. She could be living in that place that was totally acceptable, doing her traveling. So the more money, more problems. Well, those problems are the debt. That's the problem.
that's why I truly never level up.
And that...
There's one video of mine that needs to do well. It's this one.
All right, that's into that. Okay, and that, folks... Let me go... I'm going to expand this here real quick. Just let me expand this. Oh, in case anyone's wondering what the glasses are, they are Versace glasses from Lens Crafters. I had somebody already ask me what the glasses are. I just picked them up. Yes, paid for in cash. But yeah, they're Versace from Lens Crafters, and it's part of their new line. So if you're looking for them, that's where they are. No, but it's that feeling like you have to spend more because you make more. You have to live the lifestyle. People think that you should live based on what you make. Don't level up. Level down so you can level up later. I'm Carrie. This is Consumer Debt Chit-Chat. Guys, I want to thank you. Sorry this was kind of long, but I wanted to take a kind and gentle approach to it. I think I did a pretty good job, if you ask me. All right, and to the young people on this TikTok that I just presented here, you know what? Stay the course. Life does get better. It really does. But I'll be honest, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Don't forget to subscribe. Folks, my time is up. and so is yours. Happy Sunday night. Bye, everyone.